Welcome one and all to another day here at the Damage Report. This is a Friday, and normally that is Brett Ehrlich's turf, but he's off in the far east in Japan for the 27th time or something like that, and apparently having a lot of fun, admittedly. And so that opens up an awesome spot, not only for somebody to join me to break down the news, but also to throw their own personally chosen garbage person in the bin. And today we were very lucky that that person is Trae Crowder. Trae, how's it going?
Hello, buddy. How's it going? Glad to be back. Yeah, I've never been here on a Friday. I'm not accustoed to the the traditions and all that, but I'll navigate
I could have sworn that you had. That's so strange.
I don't think. I mean, not this show. I've done other shows on Fridays, I think, and I've done this show a bunch, but not this show on a Friday. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Well, this is one of our big traditions. We're ritualistic people.
Yes.
And so we like to do this. But Trae and I were talking before the show, and I was just thinking, man, last Friday he was doing the Hollywood Improv. This Friday he's doing TDR. Things kind of falling apart for you, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been coming on here for a while, so things have been falling apart. If that's true. If that's the metric you use to measure that.
Yeah. Well, in any event, we've got a lot of news that we're going to be discussing. Serious stuff, the Epstein cover up, the economy falling apart. A guy who used to talk about the news in the morning, deciding who lives and who dies. There's a lot of fun stuff in the news, but definitely stick around for after the end of the hour because we will be doing our garbage people of the week and we've got some fun ones. I get to make fun of somebody who definitely deserves it. And then also in that half hour, we're gonna be talking about the right-wing continued meltdown over South Park, as well as Elon Musk doing another test demo of his robot that he says is gonna make Tesla a $25 trillion company. We're gonna evaluate how that robot's doing so far. But in any event, definitely hit the like button, share the stream, send us your comments, your tweets, and your super chats. You might earn yourself a Blue Apron gift card with a good enough comment. So get those in. But for now, Trae, are you ready to start this thing?
Absolutely. Rock and roll. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's have a little bit of fun. Pam Bondi just got busted because one of her lackeys was caught on camera saying that, they have a plan when it comes to the Epstein files. They're just gonna redact all the Republicans and leave the Democrats out. Take a look.
Do you think the stuff with Epstein will actually get released or not at all?
If it does, it'll be heavily redacted and his name won't be in it.
But those files do exist.
There's files.
Yeah.
For sure. There's thousands and thousands of pages of files. But again, if they're released in any way, it's going to be very redacted. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal Democratic people in those files, and have a very slanted version of it come out where it's like, look at what he's going, without releasing any of their bad behavior.
So a couple of interesting things about that. One, that's not just some rando speculating about what they're gonna do. You're watching one of those right now. No, this is a different person. This is somebody who's the acting DOJ deputy chief of operational enforcement or whatever, Joseph Schnitt. And the other interesting thing is that's a James O'Keefe investigation. The people who took down Acorn and he gets to dress up in, he's a pimp or something. The only person that loves cosplaying more than Kristi Noem. Well, in this case, they got a conservative appearing to admit that the fix is in. They're gonna redact all of the conservatives. And look, admittedly, they're already a good way there. They've already redacted Trump's name after the 1,000 times or whatever it appeared in there. And so, yeah, they're just gonna, I guess, release the files. There might be some Democrats or democratically linked donors. They'll just protect all the Republican politicians, the Republican donors and all that. And that, I guess, is the plan, I suppose. And so we're definitely gonna discuss that. I want to get Trae in to talk about that. They're gonna backtrack and be like, that dude's, he's a chucklehead. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's the DOJ deputy chief. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't realize that Tom Segura's brother was that high up in the DOJ personally, but yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot going on here. On the one hand, like you said, he's high up in the DOJ. He's speaking with apparent confidence there and everything, but the whole thing is sort of stained by the source of it, at least a little bit, but it being O'Keefe and their history there. And then the fact that they're even doing that at all because this is the one and only scandal that's kind of penetrated the, the barrier of loyalism amongst the far right, or however you want to put that. So I'm also thinking about just thinking ahead, and if and when that does happen, if they do release them and it is just redacted, every conservative name and Trump's name is redacted, but they release the files, and then the idea that everybody's just like good with that, everybody being like on the right or whatever, is like, see, we told you, nothing but Democrats, like it isn't obvious what happened, might just be the final straw for me. I might show up bald on here the next day from having finally pulled every last hair out of my head if that actually happens. Yeah. Because I mean, when they say redacted, they do mean like just black lines through names and stuff.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't work. But here's the
thing. I mean, it totally would.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah,
why didn't they just do that 3 months ago? Because like there are some conservatives who still do really care about this. A significant chunk of the voters or whatever. 3 or 4 Republican politicians, they're a little bit dicey, but they at least signed on to the discharge petition or whatever. So Massey and Marjorie Greene, Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace. And then in terms of right-wing media, there's nothing actually. There was for like a weekend, and then Trump called them and they all bowed down. And so there are some who want to get to the bottom of it, but that's going too far. They can see that there's a cover-up. They don't like it. They're like, hey, for years we've been doing the QAnon thing. Can we be like at least minimally consistent on this? And so they want, I would say, something. Do they demand the full truth, nothing but the truth?
Right.
I don't think so. I think that if they were to do what this guy laid out and just release a couple of interesting names, I think for a significant chunk, that would be enough. And so I don't know why Trump didn't do that. Why is he continuing to attack them for caring about this rather than just give them a bit of red meat?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. When all this like was first happening, the video that I made about it for my socials, I said something like at the time, I was like, I feel like we all know that if Trump could literally just like pull out like a napkin written in crayon, misspelled Epstein list at the top. And it's like Obama's, Clinton's, Rosie O'Donnell probably, not me. And they would all be like, thank you for getting to the bottom of this, sir. We appreciate that. And then they would just go on, it would be that simple. And obviously that's, just a tiny bit hyperbolic, but not much. But yeah, you're right. It would work, and it will work if they ever do it. And I don't know why. The only, isn't this sort of idea that the theory that some people have had is there's some form of like mutually assured destruction involved is the only thing that would keep him from doing something like that. Meaning that like they're not the only ones that have access to this information or something. You know what I mean? Like if you try to do that, you burn us, then we will burn you back type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of theories, and it's entirely possible that something like that is out there. But like what he's landed on as the strategy, and we'll show some of his updated communications, Donald Trump, is just, it's the most suspicious possible way to address this. And we've got a lot to get to. I want to give you just a little bit more from that expose. Here's more Schnitt.
Internally, there's a lot of, even within the administration, there's internal conflict.
Oh, okay.
Like the FBI really wants it. Second in command at FBI has been like causing problems because he's like, no, these have to be released.
Yeah. So the FBI wants them out.
Yep. The top 2 guys that do that.
And Bondi does it.
I don't know what Bondi wants. Bondi wants whatever Trump wants.
Sure.
Yes.
They visited that Maxwell person.
Yeah.
And also involved.
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BOP policy because she's a convicted sex offender, and they're not supposed to get minimum security prisons, which is an interesting detail because she's getting a benefit, which means they're offering her something to keep her mouth shut.
Yeah, and none of this looks very good. So he seems to imply there that there is actually a conflict between Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi. And so that definitely stood out. And now after what Trae said, I definitely cannot get past how much he looks like the love child of Tom Segura and Jesse the Body Ventura, I think. But anyway, so yeah, so apparently there's that fight. The thing is, like, that makes her look even worse, and it makes theoretically Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, I guess, look better. Bear in mind, Kash Patel, I have not heard a word out of his mouth in like 2 months that he's pushing for more disclosure. Dan Bongino has sort of tried to imply that he wants to get to the truth, but bear in mind, he didn't like resign in protest or whatever. He's still there months into this cover up. And so, yeah, maybe on some level he wants it to come out, but he's certainly not making that happen. In any event, you're probably all wondering, how did this guy get taped? So what they did was, O'Keefe did the same Desantis stuff that he always does. They set that guy up, Schnitt, on a date with the woman, the reporter or whatever, on the dating app Hinge. He said the comments I made were my own personal comments on what I've learned in the media and not from anything I've done or learned at work. He has no knowledge of the circumstances surrounding Miss Maxwell other than what is reported in the news. And that's possible. He doesn't have to be involved in anything, but like nothing at his job, nothing in the DOJ had anything to do with Maxwell and the investigation. Why is he leaping to the conclusion that they're going to do all of this redacting if it's not based on literally anything? That just seems weird to me. And the DOJ put out this message from him, so you can take a look at it. And it appears that they screenshotted a note that he typed in his phone, and he just barely got it in before his battery died. So this is like the weirdest, least official way to do this, Trae. So I share with you, O'Keefe being involved kind of hurts it because they're super disreputable. But like, I also don't know what the context could be of selective editing that makes it look like anything other than it does right now. So who knows? What do you think?
The only caveat I'll get, I don't know why I'm trying to give I don't want to give anyone the benefit of the doubt. It certainly seems very damning, but like his excuse for it all, or the way he explained it, like, I don't know what that job title means. Obviously, acting deputy chief sounds very high up to me, but I have no idea what his actual job description is or his duties and stuff. And if he works there but isn't actually involved with any of that crap, the idea that guy, if he's on like a date apparently, or he's trying to impress some girl or whatever, that he would, act very confidently as though like he's real plugged in and knows everything that's going on is not, that's not really a stretch that a guy would do that, but it all fits in with what we've all kind of been assuming and thinking anyway, and is definitely very believable, and at the very least looks really bad. So, regardless of the source, because it wasn't James O'Keefe in a dress, and like you said, it doesn't appear to be AI or manipulated or anything. This guy really did say those things. This guy really does have that job. So, that looks bad.
Yeah, well, look, I will say maybe I've done a bad thing. Maybe I've jumped to conclusions based on my desire to believe the narrative that this guy spread. So I know a solution, a pretty easy one. Put out all the files with no redacting. And then clearly that guy will have been wrong. I'll look like a big dumb donkey. Just release the files and it'll clear the DOJ's name. But obviously they're not gonna do that. That said, let's turn to now one of those Republicans that I referenced that does seem, at least on some level, to care about the truth being reached. Marjorie Greene stood with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and their unnamed accomplices earlier this week. And as predicted, she is being attacked by a lot of people for that. Many Republicans, many MAGA people, for being on the correct side, for being consistent. For once in her life, she's being attacked. And so Brian Glenn, her boyfriend, put up this tweet, having done dinner with the sweetest woman on earth. And I'm not even gonna fact check that. I'm just gonna let that stand. So it's him and Marjorie Greene. And it's just like hey, I like my partner. There's nothing wrong with it or whatever. And so we can go now to the replies. Golden Choice says, sorry, Brian, MTG standing with Massey in the presser was a bad move. They did nothing. Why didn't they name names? It was a grift. That person seems to think that this is a part of the cover up, that like they stood with the victims, but they didn't go far enough. Most of the comments are not in that vein. Donnie MAGA Lovin' Jeeper So, says, boo, unfollowed you, Brian, and I'm so disappointed MTG. She's lost MAGA and looks like you have too. The Golden Age Times says, are you both talking about how much you secretly hate Trump? No, you're thinking of Tucker Carlson text messaging his coworkers about how he hates him and he's a destroyer. You know, the guy that you still probably like, not MTG, who loves Donald Trump and is not criticizing Trump. To be clear, she's pretending that he has nothing to do with the cover up, and yet she still gets attacked. Anyway, Brian Glenn goes on to defend her, as he's gonna do. It's his partner. And so anyway, says she stood up for sexually abused women. That's it. So you do you, bro. And that is basically it. She doesn't like that there was a sign that accused Trump of being a pedophile or whatever. I would just say to Colt, who Brian Glenn responded to, Colt, did you see Trump there? Like, he could have been standing with the victim. Have you seen him ever meet with a victim? Have you seen him ever express empathy or compassion for the victims? Have you seen him badmouth Ghislaine Maxwell? Have you seen him tear the DOJ a new one for putting Ghislaine Maxwell in a minimum security prison and say, not on my watch, okay? Maximum security for elite sex predators. Did you see any of that? Now, I get that, like, you're enraged by the cover up, and this is a convenient, like, stress relief valve for you to go off on Brian Glenn and Marjorie Greene, but they're not in charge of this. You know, they're not actually doing the cover up. That's your dude, Donald Trump. Maybe turn some of your attention to him. What do you think, Trae?
I mean, yeah, like, I don't know how much more evidence they need that, like, you know, nobody is safe on that side if you're not 100% with Trump all the time. Like, it doesn't matter how you could be arch conservative your entire life. You could be from an arch conservative dynasty like, you know, Liz Cheney and people like that. And then, but the moment you show any sort of, you know, like, backbone towards Trump or any sort of, like, disagreement even with Donald Trump at all, then that's it. You're out. And it doesn't matter what the context of it is. In Liz Cheney's place, it was, or Liz Cheney's case, it was, you know, saying, hey, I think that, like, you know, coups and treason and stuff is bad. And people were like, she's out. And now with MTG, it's like, I think that, like, you know, sexual assault and the trafficking of minors and all this type of thing is bad. And they're like, you got to go, because those two things both went against Donald Trump, who is the president, which is crazy to even think about. You know what I mean? Like, to do it, having either of those opinions qualifies as defying the president openly and publicly, and everyone knows and understands that. It's just so bananas. So essentially, it's like, the one thing you cannot do as a modern day Republican is just, like, be on the right side of anything ever. Like, even once. You can be on the wrong side of 99 out of 100 things. But if you're on the right side of anything ever, you can bet your ass Trump's going to be on the other side of it, and that's going to cost you. And that's what's happening with Marge right now. So
yeah, and Marge apparently missed the memo that whole thing about elite sex trafficking and QAnon and Epstein, that was when we thought it would take down Democrats.
Right.
It was like, oh my God, there's a silver bullet. We're gonna get them. Oh, we can't get them? Screw it. Who cares about the kids? That's what, I'm not gonna say most of the MAGA voters, because based on the polls, they do most want to get to the truth. But for their elected officials, it's 99% of them. For their media, it's 99.9% of them. Screw the kids, we don't care. No, literally, you can screw the kids and we will not care. This was just about getting Bill and, I don't know, Tom Hanks or whatever. If we can't get Chrissy Teigen, then I'm not interested anymore. That's effectively what's going on. That said, we've been talking about the survivors. So let's turn now to video one.
I voted for Trump, and for him to say what he's saying is beyond me, because I put my hope in him and he's supposed to protect us. And for him to say that this is a joke and that it's sides, this is not sides. We will say it time and time again. None of us are up there accusing him of anything. There is no one that is accusing him of any wrongdoing. So for the fact that he is saying those things and saying it's a hoax, who are you hiding for then? Because if it's not you, then who is it? And that scares me.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think a lot of people are wondering that. A lot of those survivors are wondering that. And I know Thomas Massie has come out with the first name, John Paulson, who is a big donor, who's been attacking Massie and is a huge donor to Donald Trump. He apparently was in the black book, so maybe John Paulson is who he's covering for. Or maybe John Paulson is just the first of 5 or 20 or 200 people that he's covering for. Or in fact, perhaps Donald Trump's name is in the files hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times because of something else. I don't know. But that woman voted for Trump and came out and has got to have been wondering for months now, why won't Donald Trump meet with us? Like I voted for him. I'm a Republican. Several of those women apparently are Republicans. And what do they get from Donald Trump? News reports, Daily Beast, he'd been bad-mouthing the victims as just Democrats. Because I guess it doesn't matter. I guess that if the elites are sex trafficking Democrats, then who the hell cares, I suppose. But either way, some of them aren't even Democrats. And what does he do after that interview? It's more insult to injury. I'm not gonna read this entire message, but he put up this absolutely massive message. And I hope that Marjorie Greene is reading this because she believes that Donald Trump doesn't know anything about what's going on with this case. And it's just his advisors that are leading him down a bad path. No, he is posting diatribes, novellas, attacking the victims. And so he does it here. He says the Democrats, they didn't care about Epstein. They were just, where is it? They were just befriending him, socializing with him. You know, the Democrats who were friends with Epstein, not Trump, who was his literal best friend for like 25 years. It's all the Democrats that are friends with him. So anyway, they're just pretending to care. They don't care. Their polling's bad. Our polling's good, whatever. It's a hoax. Screw them. But then the most important part is this. Once you get past all of the brain rot and all that, the Department of Justice has done its job. They've given everything requested of them. It's time to end the Democrat Epstein hoax and give the Republicans credit for the great, even legendary job they're doing. Make America great again. So they're done. The DOJ is done. Shut up, survivors of Epstein. We've given you everything you've asked for, except for all of the things that you've asked for. I mean, so this thing blew up when he had Pam Bondi come out and be like, we're not investigating this anymore. And since then, we've asked for the client list, the documents. We haven't gotten the client list. The documents, all they've released is stuff that was already publicly available. No new documents have been released. We find out that there's like 3 minutes of video that was edited out of the prison video. We've seen literally none of that. And you don't get to see it, okay? Donald Trump's never met with the victims. The only action they took is they sent Trump's longtime personal lawyer down to have a private meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, apparently ensure that she's not gonna badmouth him, and then give her the reward of moving to a minimum security prison. And that is a good, even legendary job. So get off their back. What more do you want? And if you're a survivor, if you're a MAGA person that cares about this story, he is spitting in your face over and over and over again, begging you to just shut the hell up, give up. This is a cover up, and it's like annoying to have to continue it for months. Just let the cover up succeed. And I worry that like even people who really do care, Trae, can only hold out for so long. What do you think's gonna happen?
I mean, I hate to say this, but I think that you're right. I mean, that's why he's doing it. It's always worked before. Like things just come up and people get mad for a second. And now typically like his people haven't gotten mad until this is like the first time that's ever happened. But still, you just hold the line. You keep doing a bunch of other crazy, stupid stuff. And eventually like people, even no matter how much they want to care, they can't. Again, I just to go back to January 6th, that's crazy that happened and that nothing ever came of it. But that was years ago. And it's like, we just all sort of, it just moved on. And it's like, he's definitely assuming that that'll happen in this instance too. And I hate to say this, but I think that it probably will. It's like you said, people can only sort of hold it. It's already kind of starting to happen. It's popped back up more this week because of the victims and testifying and that stuff. But like, it was already like starting to fade. And it just feels like you're being, just like with January 6th, feels like you're being like gaslit by this country or whatever, or gaslit by America or these people every day, because it's just so obviously a cover up. It's so obviously off. Like again, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she believes he doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't really know about any of this, whatever. But it's like you said, he was his best friend. There are pictures and video that everyone has seen, spanning decades. And it's just like, I mean, it just makes you feel like you're going crazy. Like, I don't know, I cannot believe that this is actually what this country has come to. This is how things operate. Because when I was growing up, again, gets brought up all the time, but it's true. Howard Dean's political career got ruined because he made like a girly woo sound at a rally once. And then everybody was like, you can't get out of here. You can't be in politics at that level if you're going to make stupid sounds like that. And that was it. And now from that to that was like, what, 20 years ago? From that to this in 20 years is like, just crazy.
I can't believe that was 20 years ago. Goddamn, I'm old. But yeah, no, you're totally right. And meanwhile, you're totally, January 6th can happen. Nobody cares. It's just like, yeah, whatever. You did a coup. I don't like in the middle of like a devastating pandemic where thousands of Americans are dying every day. He's like, stop the testing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened I guess he lost re-election, but then they brought him back in. Yeah, no, it's all maddening. And by the way, it might be, and I'll close on this, that we've got a day, a week, a month left of talking about this, and that's it. And no matter how much we cover it, we can't get to justice. What I do think we can get to, though, is that clearly this bothers him. Clearly it annoys him and might have some effect on his blood pressure. And I think that's where we need to press, because I don't think there's a lot of margin for error there in his cardiovascular system. So maybe we can get this thing done if we can just anger him for a couple more days. That's where my hopes are lying. In any event, we're gonna have to take a short break. There's lots more to get to after this. Welcome back, one and all. Yeah, people are saying one word killed Dan Quayle's Skittlebutt career in politics. There was that Republican senator who called someone in a crowd macaca, and that was it. It was done. Trump, he's mocked disabled reporters.
From the beginning, at the very beginning. Well, you got the idea. You knew that things were changing in that direction when the grab them by the report came out before the first election, and that didn't matter. That's when a lot of people, myself included, were like, okay, something weird is happening here. And then and that was an understatement.
Exactly. Okay, let's jump into some comments, of which there are a lot, and some gifting, of which there's a lot. CDN North Dog Dad, as always, gifting a membership. Thank you so much. Don Quixote gifting a membership. Thank you. Art Vandalay gifted 10. Thank you. You're the best. I love the support. Volsunga Child, I just had to copy this, says, does anyone see Trump's reluctance on the Epstein files as some sort of guilt? Yes. It's just such a mild comment, like 2 months in. I'm sure it's a joke, but I'm like, yeah, I do actually. Well, sign me up for that. Thank you for the comment. JNL, hey JNL, with a super chat saying, hello, John and Trae. Wish me luck. My lung surgery is on Monday. I'll be down next week, so I wish you and everyone a good week ahead. Take care. I didn't know you were doing a lung surgery coming up. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I hope that it goes super smoothly. I hope that your health is in the hand. Yes, thank you. I hope your health is in the hands of actual scientists and not people like RFK Jr. and that you're going to be fine and pull through this thing. And hopefully we'll be talking again soon. Okay. Doyle Keister says in a super chat, imagine voting for the best friend of the guy that trafficked you. Wild. Sure, but I got nothing bad to say about any of the victims after what I imagine is years of absolutely unbearable treatment at the hands of law enforcement and all of that. You can vote for whoever you want, and then is still coming out and talking about the story despite being told to shut up about it. So.
Also, just to be completely fair here, we don't know exactly who all she interacted with and what other people were involved in that. It's not like he was the only one. No one thinks he was the only one, and I'm, so maybe she has those feelings towards a lot of politicians at the highest levels in this country. We don't know.
Well, and as people are pointing out to Doyle's comment, Trump said he would release the files while campaigning.
Yes, that was a big thing for them.
You could think he's your champion or whatever. I mean, of course, in the Fox News video, he's like, yeah, well, maybe less so Epstein, because there's a lot of crap in there. I don't want to ruin my life. I don't want to ruin someone's life. But anyway, thank you for the comment, Doyle. And I got a conversation going, which I appreciate. Okay, Bernie the Kiwi Dragon says in a super chat, hey John, my congratulations to Brett. His Trae Crowder impression is 100% spot on. By the way, did you see Jamie Raskin absolutely roast Nigel Farage? No, I think I read a couple comments from it, but I didn't actually watch it. But fan of Jamie Raskin, I'm sure he did a great job. Okay, let's see. Shadow Wolf has been with us on Twitch for 50 months. Thank you. Robo Blake for 58. Says, hey John, any chance we can make this Friday replacement of Brett with Trae a permanent thing? Who knows when or if Brett even comes back from Japan? Okay, we'll see what we can set up.
I'm not trying to take anybody's job here, Brett.
Don't worry, he's not watching. He's having fun in Japan right now. He's not gonna see that. And Skittlebutt says he can't release the list because they will all show the money they paid him. Well, it'll certainly show a bunch of his donors. I don't think anybody disputes that. And we'll be back with more after this. Okay, everybody, let's jump now into the sort of nonsense that Trump is doing on a daily basis to get you to miss the important things that he's doing behind the scenes. Here's some nonsense for you.
And so, Pete, you started off by saying the Department of Defense, and somehow it didn't sound good to me. It didn't sound good. Defense, what are we defense? Why are we defense? So it used to be called the Department of War, and it had a stronger sound. And as you know, we won World War I, we won World War II, we won everything. Now we have a Department of Defense with defenders. I don't know. If you people want to, standing behind me, if you take a little vote, if you want to change it back to what it was when we used to win wars all the time, that's okay with me. All right?
That's coming.
You let me know if you want to do it. I think Department of War. It just sounded bad. He said, sir, on behalf of the Department of Defense. Defense. I don't want to be defense only. We want defense, but we want offense too, if that's okay. So you'll make a decision.
Yeah, defend the homeland is only the appeal they make to potential ICE agents. They don't appear to care much about defending the homeland. It's about attacking people. So it's got to be the Department of War, he says to his base who voted for him, believing he was the anti-war president or something. No more intervention from Mr. Department of War. Now, a couple of important notes on that. First of all, it's not up to the former Fox host standing behind you what the name of that department is. And he appears to know that. And we'll get into that once it gets into the actual process. But also he's like, we used to have the Department of War. We won all these wars. Now we're weak. We're defense. When they changed it from the Department of War to the Department of Defense, you know who they were? They were the people who beat the Nazis. They were the people who stared down the Soviet Union, beat the Imperial Japanese. They were the ones who won the war and then said, you know what? We've experienced this hell across the Earth's surface for years and lost hundreds of thousands of Americans. We know how terrible it is. We don't want to do this for decades more. Let's focus on defending ourselves. Those war heroes said when they changed it. And now decades later, Cadet Bone Spurs, who spent his entire life attacking the very concept of military service, swoops in and says, I think it would sound cooler if we're Department of War. You're all weak, I'm strong, I want Department of War. And so that's apparently what they're gonna do. He's signing executive order to try to rename it, which again, he can't just rename it. So what he's gonna do is they're just gonna have them call it the Department of War. It's not actually the Department of War. They're just gonna call it that. So effectively, they have their official name on the documents, but they have a name that they prefer to be called. And obviously it would be rude of us to ignore that. They would rather be called this thing. And so Trump demands you use the name he wants. This department's pronouns are now Department/War, and you will abide by that. So this entire thing is obviously, it's a distraction. It's warmongering. It's pathetic for a guy like Trump to pretend to be some kind of warrior or whatever, but it actually will get worse, and we'll get to that. Trae, what do you think?
So actually this one I think is a little bit kind of complicated for me once I thought it through more, because obviously I don't like it. I think it's stupid. It is stupid, and especially the source it's coming from and everything you said about what the rationale is and why they're doing it is so dumb, so juvenile and unnecessary and pointless. It's They think it sounds cool. They think it sounds tough. It's just like alpha male BS or whatever. Like it's dumb, and it doesn't. And we have a great many actual problems, and this is just such a nothing thing to waste time on. And I don't like it at all. When I thought about the fact that it for years was called the Department of War and we changed it to the Department of Defense while, doing all these shadow coups and all this other stuff that we've been doing around the world for years and everything, part of me was kind of like, well, that was sort of a shady move on our part to begin with, really. It's like what? No, this is all this stuff we're doing in Cambodia and Central America. That's all defense stuff. Like, don't you got to worry about that. We're just being defensive. That's it. We wouldn't do war stuff when there's not a war happening. Us? Yeah. No, come on. No, it's defensive. That's all. But that has nothing to do with the reasonings they have for wanting to change it now. And like you said, the methodology for it and how stupid that is too, that they're not actually changing it. They're just going to start calling it that. So yeah, it's dumb and pointless, but there's a slight bit of nuance to it because it was kind of funny of America to have changed it the way that they did in the first place, in my opinion, considering the way that we act all the time.
Sure. I mean, look, the thing is, back when I was in undergrad or whatever, and I was a poli-sci student, I am 100% sure that at one point, I mean, I didn't tweet it or whatever because Twitter didn't exist back when I was in college or whatever. There was no social media really. I am sure I declared they should just call it the Department of War. That's at least honest. But the point of that was to point out how we're warmongering and all that,
which is bad. And they're doing it because it's like it's cool, right? They want to call it that because it's like it's awesome, it's badass.
Yeah. And he's doing that.
Right.
He bombed Iran.
Yes. Right.
He's participating in the genocide of the Palestinians. He just killed those 11 people on a boat or whatever. This was not the point I was making as like an a-hole sophomore at UConn 100%. Or whatever.
Yes.
So anyway, and also let's just point out again, they're so obsessed with renaming things. So when we get back in and we want to like change the name of things or take down statues or whatever, that's just what they do. And it is going to cost countless millions of dollars to do this that we have to pay for so they can feel cool, so that Pete Hegseth, former Fox News host, can tweet, Department of War, I'm tough, I'm a tough guy.
No, are you saying they're going to keep, you think they're going to keep renaming stuff? Sorry.
I think that's
like
what
it's going to be like
have.
Department of Farms, Department of Roads and getting around and stuff.
I think the Department of Labor should be Department of Corporations, basically. I think just be honest about it. The Department of Environmental Exploitation, I think, is more honest. Anyway, with that said, let's turn now to a worse side of this. Now that it looks like Pete Hegseth wants to be the Secretary of Constant War Crimes or whatever, he's just admitting that they can kill whoever they want and whatever. We'll figure out some legal authority for it after. Take a look.
Mr. Secretary, what legal authority did the Pentagon invoke to strike that boat full of drug smugglers?
We have the absolute and complete authority to conduct that. First of all, just the defense of the American people alone. 100,000 Americans were killed each year under the previous administration because of an open border and open drug traffic flow. That is an assault on the American people. I said we smoked a drug boat, and there's 11 narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean. And when other people try to do that, they're going to meet the same fate.
Yeah, so none. You have no legal authority, basically. You guys didn't even do like one of your Telegram chats and be like, well, a guy wrote a thing once and it was a legal memo and we're gonna use, no, nothing. They got literally nothing. So supposedly 11 people are dead. What confirmation has there been that it was 11 and not 5 or 50? Do we have any idea? I mean, they keep saying 11. Who are they? Would you like to name any of the notorious drug smugglers or cartel members? They don't seem to know the names. They're not giving any reason why they think that they were actually drug smugglers. Also, that they were going to assault us. It was a boat, like way out there. We have no idea what the boat was going to do, what the purpose of the boat was. Maybe everything they're saying is true. I'm just saying they haven't presented literally any evidence of anything. Donald Trump put up a video that was apparently AI generated. So that was apparently fake. And to be very clear, even if they came out with like the list of them, and it's like 11 people whose LinkedIn bio is like, I'm a cartel member or whatever. Like, to be clear, you're not legally allowed to just kill people for being drug smugglers. That's not actually a capital offense, even if they were under the jurisdiction of US law, which they're not. And I get that lots of right wingers will be like, aha, they're falling into their trap because we're being tough on crime by just summarily executing people. No, I don't care if you consider it a trap. I don't think that we oppose fascism as long as it's quiet, but the second it says or does something, we have to like meekly bow down because I don't want to look like weak compared to the fascists or whatever. You know what's tough? Letting the boat get close to us, storming it, and then arresting those people and making them face justice for the crimes that you'll actually accuse them of and then prove that they have committed. Anybody can drop a bomb. And I'm proving that by the fact that Pete Hegseth apparently can drop a bomb. A guy who once on morning television was doing an axe throw and threw it over and into a crowd of people. Even he can bomb a boat. That doesn't make it tough if Pete Hegseth can do it. Anyway, Trae, what do you make of this? Are you worried about this being a trap?
I don't know about that, but I just, he says he has the authority to, and I mean that, of course he does. They made that very clear from the very beginning of Trump round 2, from the beginning of this administration, is that they're not overly concerned with things like, authority or legality or the Constitution or stuff like that. Like they don't, they just do it. And then if you don't like that they did it or say they can't have done it, they're just like, well, we did do it though. What are you going to do about it? And if there's, and then even when there's like, and then every now and then a court jumps up and says, actually, yeah, you got to stop this. You can't do it. And they like might for a minute and they just keep appealing it, but they don't really care. And they just, they just do what they want because there's always been this kind of assumption baked into the American government. I think that things like that would be respected by anyone who would have the capacity to be elected to these positions by the American people. But that's not always the case. And when they're not, what can many of us really do about it at the end of the day if you get someone in there that baldly doesn't care about any of that the way that they don't. So
yeah, and look, again, it's just the constant normal. This is a big part of fascist ideology, is the veneration of just force and action and murder and death and blood. And you will bow down to it. We are strong if we are killing people. And maybe some people believe that. Again, we have no idea who's actually on the boat. But I will say, although we do not need a slippery slope, they've already broken international law and US law. I can provide a slippery slope. They were going to bring drugs in. That's a threat, so we have to kill them. You realize that they call migrants terrorists, right? And cartel members and gang members and all that. So what exactly would stop them from doing this exact same thing to a boat that they say has migrants on it? Either here or internationally. All those like activist boats that try to get close to Gaza or whatever to draw attention to it, they claim that those people are affiliated with Hamas. What exactly is to stop Pete Hegseth from blowing up Greta Thunberg's boat or whatever?
Right.
They'll say the same thing. It's a threat.
Right. That's what I was about to say. They could just blow up a boat of migrants and just say that they were trafficking drugs on that boat or whatever. And, and then simple as that.
Yeah, and by the way, that might be what actually
happened.
Right. It might literally have just been migrants or whatever. But they could say, well, they come in, they murder people or whatever. So we have to kill them. It's the worst of the worst. So we're just gonna murder, we're gonna blow up literally. Which is, by the way, like, I know that I talked a lot about Camp of the Saints over the years. It's literally what Camp of the Saints is blowing up migrant boats and gunning them down to stop them from getting in. That could well be our official government policy. But don't worry, we have somebody responsible like Pete Hegseth in charge. The drunk, the guy who's accused of being a sexual predator, the dude who spent years riding the couch at Fox and Friends gets to decide who lives and who dies. And by the way, like I love to normalize this. If you could be trafficking drugs, you could just be murdered. I guess President AOC can keep a really close look on the nostrils of Don Jr. And if white powder ever dusts them, I guess we bomb his mansion or whatever. If we're taking drugs that seriously, maybe we can look forward to that in the next couple of years. In any event, we're gonna take our second break of the hour and we'll be back with more after this. And by the way, again, when we covered for the last 10 years, Trump constantly saying people who deal drugs should be murdered. He's now doing that. And if he does it to a boat, why not in the streets? Just gun them down. drugs kill people. He's dealing drugs, that kills people, we shoot him. Again, they need the distraction. They need 40% of America thinks that that's tough rather than insane. So why not do it? Anyway, with that said, let's jump into some comments. Lisa Dodson says in a super chat, hey Trae, love you like chicken, like you too, John. So you get the love.
Yes, I do, yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say thank you to her, and I appreciate that. And yeah, maybe you'll get to chicken level one day, John. You could,
someday.
Yeah,
someday. Now I'm a big turkey. B166ER says in super chat, we had a human drug tester on the boat. He told us it was the really good S. So after confiscating the shipment for another Matt Gaetz part, oh frack, I mean nothing. Very funny, thank you. Nixter says in super chat, my 9-year-old Gerberian Shepsky I'm not familiar with that, has been sickly lately and I've been super worried, but his test results just came back and it's just a UTI, phew. Well, that's awesome. I gotta look this up because that almost sounds like it's a German Husky. Gerberian, right. It's a dog breed. Oh, it's a German Shepherd. It's a German Husky. That is.
Oh yeah, you know it. That actually makes total sense. But you're right. It does. If you're not ready for that, it does sound pretty weird. It sounds
they
like
look so cute.
Made up words, which I get. I mean, those are made up. Well, all words are made up. Anyway,
all of them, I guess, are. Right. Yeah. It looks like a Husky with German Shepherd fur color. Basically, it's very cute. I've never heard of that before, but very cute. Okay, Neil Whittington. Hey, Neil says in super chat, check out the Australian version of 60 Minutes 2 weeks ago. They published an Epstein files. They don't hold back, no redactions. I haven't seen anything about that, so I will have to look that up, but thank you for the heads up. Stab Dragon says in super chat, what about a little thing called North Vietnam? They whooped our hide real good. What is that from? They whooped their hide real good. That's from a movie. It's from a comedy. I don't remember. Somebody in the chat is gonna get it and they're gonna message it. Anyway, Michelle says in super chat, just think of all the S we'll have to undo once the regime comes crashing down sooner or later. Yeah, it's like, then we have to rename it to Department of Defense. And we have to like take down all the gold in the Oval Office. And we have to like have a CDC again. And maybe bring back the Department of Education and FEMA. And all of this rebuilding will be necessary. Damn it, Stavity. It was A Fish Called Wanda. I should have gotten that. I freaking love A Fish Called Wanda. Trae, are you a fan of that movie?
Yes, I am. I was when I was younger. That's one I need to rewatch. I haven't seen that movie in years. Yes.
I think it stands up pretty well. Anyway, yeah, that was what's his face talking to what's his face when he's facing down,
doing the thing at the place and stuff.
Yeah, really, yeah. But anyway, very funny movie, super old school. Most people will have no idea what that is, but it is funny. John Cleese and
Kevin Kline's in that, right?
Kevin Kline, who's very good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I got to see it again. And I've never seen Fierce Creatures, even though it is most of the same cast. I don't know why I haven't seen it yet, but I got to watch Fish Called Wanda again. Okay, so thank you, Stavity. And Michelle, thank you. Okay, Ginger Red Shoes says, first of all, has been a member for 31 months, thank you. Says, Secretary of Defense sounds professional and sophisticated. Secretary of War sounds like a guy scribbling on parchment in the commander's tent. It does sound like a position from Game of Thrones. Right. Definitely. Okay, finally, Moose, member for 10 months says, it's very strange that Trump is getting offended when we don't use his preferred name for something, isn't it? Sounds strangely familiar. Yeah, I'm way ahead of you. Okay, well, with that said, we're gonna be back with more news coming up after this. I want to thank those out there gifting memberships. Cosmic Dragon gifted one, thank you. Michelle gifted one, thank you so much. And B166ER gifted 20, thank you for all the support, I appreciate it. Okay, with that said, let's jump now into other news. The party that has claimed for literally decades that there is no right more sacred than the Second Amendment is now trying to take it away from a class of people they don't like. And what do you know? It's more anti-trans stuff yet again. So the Trump admin apparently is reportedly considering revoking trans people's right to own guns because 0.1% of mass shooters are transgender. That's all it took. So now, if you identify in this particular way, your Second Amendment rights will be stripped away. It's an exciting time to live in the conservative movement. Anyway, this started after a 23-year-old transgender person allegedly carried out the August 27th shooting that killed 2 children and injured 17 others. It was a devastating and tragic mass shooting. And it's also the first in America that has actually apparently inspired the government to do something, not to stop shootings, but to attack trans people in a new and novel way. And so, yeah, apparently the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel and the Office of the Attorney General are doing this. They want to classify being transgender as a mental illness, and that can disqualify someone from possessing a gun in the future. Now, as we've pointed out, basically no mass shooters are transgender. They're the only ones that the right ever talk about are transgender, and they have had 2 in American history. So I guess technically that's a pattern. Ignore the other, I believe, 300 mass shootings so far this calendar year. They weren't trans, so they don't count. Don't do anything about guns when it comes to them. But as you can see in this chart, there's diversity across mass shooters. The majority are white, although admittedly the majority of the country is, so I suppose that to some extent makes sense. And certainly the mass shootings that end up affecting 10, 15, 20 people, virtually every one of those has been perpetrated by a cisgendered white male. But if you want to get into ideologies, which to be clear, being transgender is not an ideology, no matter how many times Matt Walsh says that. It's an identity, it's not an ideology. White supremacists have conducted about 55% of the political murders in America. Anti-government extremists, 14%. Additionally, other right-wingers, 6%. And then you get down to other identities, Islamist, left-wing, and stuff like that. So I guess, Trae, if this does happen, it at least normalizes that if you don't like an ideology, if you consider it to be violent, you can strip those people's rights away. So, incels prone to political radicalism and violence, particularly against women. So if you've ever participated in incel forums or something, then President Buttigieg or President Newsom can strip your rights away. White supremacy clearly is a warning sign for political extremism. So if you're a white supremacist or a white nationalist, obviously you should lose your gun rights as well. It's a bold time of challenges to the status quo. Trae, what do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be fun to me to see how the mental gymnastics people do to justify supporting this inevitably, I'm sure, because I've had arguments with these people over the years so many times about like the mere prospect of gun control. And it's like, well, look, can we just try something? Can we try to make it marginally harder for people that are maybe, disturbed or dangerous to get their hands on a gun, or just even anybody to get their hands on a gun? Just make it slightly more difficult, or try this or that, or can we just try something even superficially? And of course, the response always for years was like, no, you can't. None of it is acceptable at all, because of course, as you already referenced on this show, the ever feared slippery slope that would open up. Like if you do that, then next thing you know, they're taking more and more until finally the Second Amendment is stripped away completely, and we can't take that risk. So we can't get on board with any measures ever, because it could lead to a slippery slope. But I guarantee you, the vast majority of those people now, when this is proposed to them, will be like, yeah, that's fine. I see no problem with that. And I don't understand it's supposed to be any different. This is of course not the first time that something like this has happened before. It was before my time, before your time. But when like black people started arming themselves back in the day, the 60s and 70s and stuff, those are like the only gun control laws that have ever been passed by any state was when that happened, because that freaked people out. So like there is some precedent for it, but that doesn't make it any less sorry as hell. Not to get too academic with my terminology here, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And it's also like them, like you said, they act like as soon as it comes out that a shooter is transgender, which again is happened like literally twice, and we have a new shooter every other week, they fall all over themselves to try to turn it into a transgender thing. When of course the one thing that every single one of them has in common is that they're heavily armed, right? Yes. And that part, like, let's not talk about that part. Let's just talk about the other part. And they try to, make these generalizations based on little to nothing. And it's funny because, like you said, the majority are white. If you want to talk about other, if you want to talk about like serial killers, real sicko, like anytime somebody gets caught with like a dungeon full of like skin lampshades or whatever, like it's a white dude every time. Yep. So maybe me and you shouldn't be allowed to own basements. I don't know if they want to like make that a law or what. I doubt it. But it's just also disingenuous and upsetting.
Yeah. I miss basements. I miss
I know. I don't have one either.
Yeah, no, all this is absolutely ridiculous. And I'll close by saying, for those who are like, no, we can never. Second Amendment's holy, because we got to stop tyranny. I mean, most of those people are cheering Donald Trump conquering one American city after the other. So I don't think that you actually meant it about standing up against tyranny, to be clear. In any event, we're going to jump into one more topic. We only have a few minutes and it's important. So let's jump into this. Well, we just got the updated jobs numbers and it's not looking good for the Trump administration. And it turns out that firing the Bureau of Labor Statistics head wasn't enough to save Donald Trump from the consequences of his economic follies. Take a look. Even Fox News can't spin this is a good thing.
I just want to say here, private payrolls coming in. The expectation was 75,000. We got 38,000, and there was a loss of 16,000 jobs in government, which I think Lauren mentioned. But again, that 22,000 number, Charles, it's a weaker than expected number, and these revisions are pretty brutal.
Yeah, extraordinarily. Gone through. I mentioned healthcare, 31,000. The 12-month average is 42,000. That had been obviously a massive driver, and we know the demographic situation there. Just a little disappointed. Manufacturing was hoping to maybe see something there.
Yeah, they seem a little bit down. It's weird because, America's in its new golden age and all, and they got the guy they wanted. Charles Payne wanted Donald Trump in charge, and oopsie doopsie, just putting up all these trade barriers. Not actually helping. Weird. Take a look at this. So they talked about not only the bad numbers for this month, but the revisions of the past months. So if we go to graphic 2, you bring this up. In June, we actually lost net 13,000 jobs. And look at the last 4 months. It's almost like something significant started 4 months ago, and it's not good for the economy. It's so weird. I can't figure out what it is. The funny thing is, Donald Trump clearly knew that these numbers are going to be bad because yesterday he said this, they come out tomorrow, but the real numbers that I'm talking about are going to be whatever it is, but will be in a year from now. No, but Trump, pump the brakes. Why rush yourself? Why a year? Maybe 7 years, maybe 50. Let's just ignore the consequences of your economic stupidity until you're long dead and buried. So anyway, this looks really bad, and they're blaming all sorts of people. Some people are like, it's still Biden. The good numbers under Biden weren't his fault, but the bad numbers after him are, and some of them are like, it's Jerome Powell. And you know what? I did huff a lot of paint this morning. I think it was Jerome Powell that set up all those tariffs. So maybe they're onto something. Trae, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to make a joke about, how could Joe Biden have done this? Because I knew there would be people out there still trying to make that argument, and I'm sure they are, and they won't go away either. But how long do you think it'll be until Trump just completely shuts down the entire operation that leads to the releasing of this data or the collecting of it? Do you know what I mean? Like he stopped the testing in COVID, like you referenced earlier. Like he fired the first lady that weirdly didn't change the reality of what was happening when he fired her, that person somehow. And so now, what's his what recourse does he have now other than just wiping out the entire process itself, and then just telling everybody that things are good as bread lines form and we're all fighting over rats in the street and stuff, and he keeps talking about a new golden age. So probably something like that is what'll happen probably.
Yeah. And by the way, look, they don't want the information to come out because this could hurt them politically. But to be clear, why would most of these Republicans be mad about this? They want more unemployment. They want workers to be desperate for the small number of jobs that remain, I think. And so they already got their tax cuts. The corporate profits are going up. They're doing fine in that. So anyway, this doesn't look good for the regime though. So I don't doubt you're right. Eventually they got to shut down the whole thing. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time we have for the first hour of the show. Much more to come after this. Welcome back, one and all, to the Aftermath. Thank you for being here. We're about to jump into the garbage people and a little bit more news. I want to read a few comments first. CD and Northstock Dad says in a super chat, Trump wants to ban trans people from having guns. Is he afraid a group of trans vets will come and arrest him for his crimes? I don't think that he's really afraid of any legal consequences for what he did. I think that he's really focused on the issues within, in his like leg arteries and stuff like that. I think that's the bigger threat to his continued rule. Also, Rick says, for 9-month member, thank you, says, let's go Aces. Sorry about your team, John. Becky has them ladies firing in all cylinders, bring on the playoffs. So I didn't actually get to watch the game, the Aces Lynx yesterday, but I don't like this soon to the playoffs, my team winning. And it's my secondary team. I gave up on the Sparks, basically. One more loss and they're out of contention for the playoffs anyway. So we'll see what happens with that. But I still think the Lynx have a very good chance. In any event, are you ready to jump into some garbage people, Trae?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. First time for me. Let's try it.
I'm excited. First time. Okay. It's the end of the week, and so it's time to take out the trash. Trae, for the first time ever, who is your garbage person of the week?
All right, this week I took a little bit of a different tack. My garbage person of the week is NBA Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, who scandal broke this week from perhaps the best investigative journalist in the sports world, Pablo Torre, who reported that Ballmer basically circumvented the salary cap and used like a shady no-show sponsorship deal in order to pay his star Kawhi Leonard tens of millions of dollars more than is supposed to be allowed by the league rules. And I know this is not a sports show, and a lot of people are listening like, who cares, whatever. But to me, it's a indicative of a much larger problem. I think maybe the biggest problem that we have in this country, which is how much all these super rich people suck and how much they don't care about anything or anyone else ever. So for some more details, essentially he gave money to this company called Aspiration. Aspiration then hired Kawhi for a sponsorship job, but Kawhi never did literally anything. They like tagged him in a tweet and he didn't even retweet it. It's like he did nothing. God. And they paid him tens of millions of dollars for a sponsorship role. And it was blatantly just so that the Clippers could funnel more money to him through that company. So, they could get around the salary cap, which is of course not very sporting of them. And but it's also like it's lazy and it's obvious, and now that someone has uncovered it. But that's what I'm saying. It's like Ballmer, of course, denies it, says he was conned by these people, which makes no sense to me. That's also insulting. It's like he thinks everyone is stupid, because it's like the only term in Kawhi's contract with this company was that the only way this money would ever go away is if he no longer played for the Clippers. Why would a company who isn't the Clippers put that in his contract in the first place? But that's Ballmer's position. Oh, no, they did this to help the Clippers out because they're just such huge fans or whatever. I didn't even know, right? But so the assumption was clearly that no one would ever care. No one would ever find out. And if they did somehow find out, that nothing would ever come of it. And that may still be true, but this is how all of the ultra-rich operate in this country with everything all the time, which is with complete 100% assumed impunity, right? And I'm just sick of that across the board. And if I keep, the longer I'm allowed to rant here, the more likely it gets that I start bringing up, some Luigi type stuff or whatever. So I should probably back off now because this is a basketball story at the end of the day. But it just pisses me off because every day there's a new story about, the people who hold all the strings and levers of power in this country doing whatever they feel like doing, repercussions be damned, as long as it, benefits them in some way. And this week's example of that, at least in the sports world, is Clippers owner Steve Ballmer. So that's why I picked him as my garbage person of the week.
I think it's great. I think you mentioned this, but he also was an investor in Aspiration, I believe. So he had like an official tie to the company. Yeah. By the way, full transparency, back in the day, Aspiration was a sponsor of I don't know if it was the damage report specifically, but it was TYT anyway. But if they do something wrong, it doesn't matter if they used to be our sponsor or whatever, we're still gonna talk about it. Unless they were to pay me as much as they paid this basketball player, and then I'll never say anything again. But clearly they didn't. And full transparency, I never made $1 individually from Aspiration, to be clear. They were not a sponsor of mine, and the sponsorship money doesn't go to me. It was for the company. But they appear to have done something wrong here, so we're gonna cover it. And it is like, I guess, so presumably the reason you would do this is because there are like salary caps and stuff like that. You can't just pay your players infinite amounts of money, but what if you could funnel money to them through another thing, right?
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard, he was a free agent at the time and like maybe the biggest free agent in the NBA. And there was already reports that like he had asked the Clippers for a bunch of improper stuff that they couldn't do. So I'm not saying Kawhi is innocent in this. And there's a lot of stories too about him being like represented by his uncle, Dennis, who's like a real shady character. So they try to get all these improper benefits and stuff over the years. And, publicly, those were all shot down. But the reason you do something like this, you're like, okay, well, how about this? What if I could offer this to you? Here's what we do. We get you a job with this company that pays you another $50 million, and everything looks on the up and up, but really that's coming from us. So that's additional salary on top of whatever your contract is, which of course is against the rule. That's the only reason that Ballmer might see some repercussions in this instance too, by the way, is because he broke the cardinal rule, which is he pissed off other rich people. The other owners involved in the NBA are probably not going to be happy about this. I would imagine at least a lot of them, because he's worth more than all of them combined. Like the only reason that they won't like it is because they probably can't afford to do what he did. If they all could, then they'd just all be doing it. And I'm sure at least a couple of them are probably. But it's just, just points to the rot at the core of this country and capitalism and everything, in my opinion.
So much money too, Jesus. And I don't know. It makes me feel also like you're hearing about like Eric Adams potentially becoming like an ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Drop out. And in the reporting, they're like, Eric Adams will have like window to potential relationships with international figures. Like, so he can get paid by all these rich people around the globe or whatever. And in return, he tries to sway the election so that Cuomo wins rather than Mom dies. This system is so utterly gross. And by the way, the idea that like voting for Trump is voting to get rid of the swamp when he's actively participating in it. But anyway, good garbage person. I like it. And don't worry about the sports news. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a jock now. Okay.
All right.
I watch basketball. I play golf or whatever. This is basically a sports show. So anyway,
nice. I'm glad to hear it. Well, you got the look for it. I always thought you were a jock in high school. That's how you always struck me, John.
Sure. I think you probably would have beaten me up in high school, actually. But anyway, is Magic the Gathering a sport? Because then maybe I was a jock in high school. Anyway, good garbage person. I like it. My garbage person of the week is gonna have to be Jeanine Pirro, who is like trying to participate in the conquering of DC, but is getting like flipped the bird by the people of DC in a way that I think is hilarious. See, she's going out there with all of her troops or whatever, and they're like trying to put their like iron boot on the neck of DC residents, and they're scooping up all these people for explicitly political reasons. And then they're taking them to grand juries and they're trying to get indictments so they can lock them up for the rest of their life for like being Democrats or whatever. And what I love is that in many of these cases, the grand juries are like, no, we're not giving you an indictment, making her look like a big old dumb donkey. And so what you need to understand for context before we get into the specifics is that federal grand juries return indictments in the overwhelming majority of cases, literally 99.9% they do the indictment, because the prosecution controls every aspect of the proceedings while the defendant has no opportunity to object or present their case. But despite that, in just the last couple of weeks, 5 grand juries have refused to indict individuals facing persecution by the Trump administration, which is statistically impossible. And so let's jump into some of the specifics. So you have Sean Dunn. He's the hero who threw the Subway sandwich at one of the occupying forces, yelling, "F you, you effing fascist. Why are you here? I don't want you in my city." So she charged him with felony assault on law enforcement, and the grand jury was like, "Get the hell out of here, Jeanine Pirro." So that didn't happen. You have Sydney Lori Reed. According to police, she placed herself between immigration agents and an individual who they were attempting to arrest. Reed apparently forcefully pushed one agent's arm, prompting prosecutors to charge her with felony assault on law enforcement. But a grand jury said no to that, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And that's a serious crime too, pushing an arm. That's like Representative Maxine Waters level of assault right there. Anyway, you have Alvin Summers, who was pulled over near the National Mall. They said that Summers tried to speed walk away from them and charged him with felony offense of resisting or impeding federal law enforcement. The grand jury was like, get the hell out of there. And then you have Natalie Rose Jones, who traveled to DC to protest Trump at the White House. Jones consented to a search, had no weapons, and attested that she sought to demonstrate peacefully. But then they tried to charge her anyway with the felony offense of threatening the president because she referred to him as a terrorist. And thankfully, again, the grand jury was like, hell no, we're not indicting her as a terrorist or whatever for that. And so I love it. And in particular, I love that Jeanine Pirro looks like a goober as a result of this, and that she's stewing over it. So she recently put out a statement saying, the system here is broken on so many levels. Sorry, I can't really do an impersonation of her. I sound really sober right now, so I'm not selling the Jeanine Pirro of it all. But she says, instead of the outrage that should be engendered by a specific threat to kill the president, the grand jury in DC refuses to even let the judicial process begin. Justice should not depend on politics. And I agree with that, but she doesn't believe that. They're just going around trying to arrest Democrats. So thank you to the grand juries of DC. You are true heroes. Any thoughts, Trae?
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. That's what it's going to take is things like this. I think people, taking power where they can or refusing to play along with this this crap whenever possible. Because it's like you said, there's old cliche that I don't know anything about. I'm very law dumb. I don't know anything about law stuff, but I know that there's a cliche that people say you can indict a ham sandwich or whatever, as you noted. Like they almost never don't. Grand juries almost never don't indict, in these circumstances, and now it's happening over and over again because that's just how egregiously stupid these cases are, and the good people of DC, see right through it. Now, of course, I don't know how that would go everywhere in this country. It's probably pretty dependent upon location, but it is funny and pleasant to see it happening to someone like Jeanine Pirro in this case.
Yeah, look, I hope the same thing happens in New Orleans. I hope it happens in LA and Chicago, wherever they go. I hope, look, if people commit real crimes, then sure, indict them or whatever. But if this is just like he threw a sandwich at me because he hates fascism, then you can let him go. And grand juries can do this. There's also, obviously, there's the concept of jury nullification, which could potentially pop up in a prominent case sometime in the next year or two.
Right, yep.
We'll see, we'll see. Anyway, those are our garbage people of the week. Well, 63,000 of you voted in our poll for the community garbage person of the week. 2% voting for Meghan McCain for attacking Greta Thunberg's hair. 13% voted for Trump for ignoring rising crime in Republican states. 27% voted for Stephen Miller for wanting Dems labeled as an extremist organization. But your winner with 58% of the vote, community garbage person of the week, is Mike Johnson for trying to block a vote on the Epstein petition. Thank you to the many of you who voted. But let's get rid of the negativity and now talk about our hero of the week. 67,000 of you voted. 3% going to Graham Plattner for attacking tax dollars going to bombing Gaza. We're trying to get the candidate on the show. We've thus far been unsuccessful, but great statements there. 6% went to Bernie Sanders for calling for RFK Jr. to resign. 7% to Greta Thunberg for trying to provide aid to Gaza on a flotilla. 84%, though, this was not close, went to the Epstein survivors for speaking out and slamming the cover-up. I couldn't agree more, and thank you to everybody who voted. Now, with that said, why don't we jump into a little bit more news? Move over, smash Cybertruck window. We've got an even worse, potentially, tech demo for Tesla going wrong. And it all starts with the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, who posted a video of Tesla's humanoid robot Optimus, which you've probably heard a lot about. And so he tweeted that it's here, the dawn of the physical agent force revolution, tackling human work, which is a funny way of saying replacing human labor, for only $200,000 to $500,000. It's a productivity game changer. Well, that said, how did this game changer work? Let's take a look at the demo that he posted.
Hey, Optimus, what are you doing there?
Just chilling, ready to help.
Hey, Optimus, do you know where I can get a Coke?
Sorry, I don't have real-time info. but I can take you to the kitchen if you want to check for a Coke there.
Oh yeah,
Let
that'd
me
be
know if you
great.
should go.
Yes, let's do that. Let's go.
Awesome. Let's head to the kitchen.
Okay.
Okay, go.
I think we need to give it a bit more room. Right now, it's kind of paranoid about space. It'll be able to walk a lot faster too.
Cool. Anyway, that was, by the way, Elon Musk's voice there saying, you got to back off. It's paranoid about space. Oh, also, it'll walk faster. And presumably someday it'll have actual hands rather than those gold unmovable mannequin hands that we're handing on there. So this thing that Elon Musk has said they're going to be making like 100,000 units a month inside of a year. Okay. They're going to, once they make 1 million a year, they're only going to cost $20,000. Benioff is like, it's going to be 200 to 500,000. So apparently they're going to cut the price to like 8% of what it is now. And what can it do? Well, you can ask it for a Coke. It can say, I don't know where they are. Let's check out the kitchen, which presumably these two CEO super geniuses wouldn't have thought of if not for the robot. And then you can awkwardly, slowly walk behind it as it heads towards the kitchen. The future of labor. I'm actually feeling a little bit better about AI though, Trae, because now I don't know how many jobs it'll actually be able to replace. What do you think?
I mean, that's what I keep trying to tell myself to like sleep at night when it comes to AI is that we're in an AI bubble and it will just pop and it won't ever actually achieve all these crazy things that people are talking about. Because sometimes it is still, sometimes AI stuff you see it and you're like, man, that's wild. But then other times, like last night, I Googled in the middle of Thursday Night Football, I Googled how many receiving yards does CeeDee Lamb have tonight? For no particular reason. We got to get into the reason. But I Googled that. And Google's AI said, CeeDee Lamb doesn't have any receiving yards tonight, and they put tonight in quotes, as this is a Thursday during the offseason. So no football is being played, right? And meanwhile, it's on NBC with 16 million viewers or whatever. So sometimes you see stuff like that, and you're like, okay, maybe my job isn't like gone in 3 years or whatever. But with robots in particular, I mean, that just ain't even close. We all have had the experience of like yelling at Siri or Alexa or whatever repeatedly over and over, trying to make her understand the relatively simple thing you're getting across, and you end up getting so mad you just storm off, like unplug it and leave or whatever. You're like stupid. But and like that with what's supposed to be a butler robot is hilarious. I mean, that's not even close. I just showed my son's iRobot, the Will Smith movie, from the 2000s, which I always thought was like, yeah, it is good. Like it got hated on. It's not like great, but it ain't bad. It's pretty good. But anyway, like if they're, I don't even know, they're closer to like the Nintendo VR or a Furby or whatever than they are to that, which is what they're acting like they have, because that's what those robots were. They would, since they did everything, and that's what they're acting like they've got with Optimus, and clearly. Again, dude, it's more, I think a Rock'em Sock'em robot could whip that thing's ass. So like, they got a long way to go. But that's par for the course for Elon, right? I mean, he stays lying about everything all the time.
Yeah, it's just hype. Those robots couldn't even do the endearing thing they do in iRobot where they cluster together, like because they're paranoid about their space.
Right.
Anyway, it's just, it's all hype. Like he says, that robot is going to be, in his words, the greatest product ever by far. Beyond cars and beyond anything. It's the greatest product ever. It's going to make Tesla a $25 trillion company. Well, their robots are worse than other robots that already exist. Right. It's just hype. That's all it is.
Right. That's what, like, again, if they were like the NS5 or whatever in iRobot, that probably wouldn't be that far off. That would be the craziest invention ever, whatever. But he's acting like it's that. But again, I can't believe he even posted that or allowed that to be posted.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's so embarrassing. Like it's just comically not there, dude. Like,
Yeah, I want to end, by the way, by giving credit to I forget who said it, but somebody said it's sub-Optimus, which is pretty good. And producer Mike said it's Optimus Primitive.
Yep,
that's pretty good. I like that.
I like that too.
And he also pointed out it walks at the speed that, like, when you're in camp in Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's like it doesn't let you sprint. So you have to like slowly trudge along like in a tutorial mission. It's like, oh, this is so annoying.
Yeah, hate
anyway.
that.
Not impressive, Elon Musk. Anyway, with that said, let's move on to one more story. We only have a few minutes, but it's fun. South Park has so triggered MAGA that they're now demanding that they stop talking about Donald Trump's itty bitty teeny weeny. It really seems to bother MAGA that they keep making fun of his genitals. And rather than just not watching the show, which is always available, they want the show to change. I personally think comedy should be legal, but the right apparently disagrees.
Yep.
So South Park came out with yet another episode, and they put up this still that every MAGA person is retweeting. Is President Trump effing Satan? And it's the question on everyone's mind, South Park says. Well, it apparently is the question on MAGA's mind, as you'll see. But again, it's the penis thing that really bothers them. They say no Biden episodes. Who really has the little D's? Are you gonna make a joke about him having a small D? Yet another orange man bad and has small penis episode. Shocker. I can't wait for the newest Trump has a tiny pee-pee joke. Just stop watching it. And also, like, why are you guys so invested in the size of his penis? I like Bernie Sanders. I don't care what he's packing. That doesn't have anything to do with anything. But you guys really seem to be bothered by it. And in defense of South Park, the only actual evidence we have is what Stormy Daniels said. And she said it was a tiny little mushroom. So they're just using the information that's publicly available. And by the way, if Donald Trump feels like he's been shortchanged, he can present himself to correct the record. I suspect that he's not gonna do it. And so anyway, it's just they're so bothered by this. And what I don't get, Trae, is first of all, they could just stop watching it. But second of all, South Park, like the makers of South Park, clearly want to trigger them. So every time they post a message like that, it's just telling them that it worked. And I don't know why they're allowing themselves to be trolled so successfully. What do you think as a comedian?
Oh, I mean, I think a lot of things about it, but they're definitely exposing something that most sane, at least comedians, or most like honest comedians have known for a long time, and not just comedians, but a ton of people. And it's that like these people, while they spent, the past decade plus talking about how, like, as you alluded to, oh, they want to make comedy illegal. You're not allowed to joke about anything anymore. They want to say you can't say this, you can't say that. Liberals are all snowflakes. They're so sensitive. They get offended by everything. It's like, it's ridiculous. Everything's so woke. The truth the whole time has been that those people have always been, is, and will always be the most thin-skinned, easily offended people in this country forever. Like, they would say all that the whole time, but like that's because, someone would make a racist joke and someone else would get mad, and then they would go into this diatribe. But make a joke about Jesus, or like make a joke about Jesus being gay or whatever, or like something like really go after the things that they care about, or in this case, dear leader Donald Trump. And their true colors come out, but they've always been like this. Whereas me, as a comedian, I've always tried to be pretty consistent. I think that you should be able to joke about anything as long as it's legitimately funny, and it depends on the context, intent, and in situation. And that's the factors you should take into account. It shouldn't be about how it affects your own personal politics or philosophies. That should be immaterial, in my opinion. But clearly, these people don't see it the same way. As far as the small penis stuff or whatever, that's the brilliance of Matt and Trae in this instance, is that they've correctly assessed that the best way to really get at both him and these people is to do it in the most sophomoric, fat, juvenile fashion possible. Because it's not just like little penis stuff. They're also calling him all kinds of things on these episodes and stuff. And it's the type of words that they use against other people all the time. And you're turning that back on him and throwing the same type of treatment at him and at them that they've been doing for years is, leading to these results. And I'm not surprised at all, and I'm loving it, in fact.
Yeah, we've had plenty of internet, like intellectual takedowns of Trump or whatever. Well, they're swooping in and doing it in the terms that supposedly the right likes.
Right.
You know, just let them be. Legalize comedy. They have free speech rights, I thought. I'd stop freaking out about it. But anyway, it has been a pleasure as always to have you here, and especially on a Friday to see your garbage person. Where can people watch your work?
Just Trae Crowder on whatever social media platform you use. That's TRAE Crowder. And if you want to see me live, and you should, please do. That's TraeCrowder.com, TRAECrowder.com for all my tour dates. And yeah, that's it. Thanks. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Good to have you here. Always glad to. Well, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna record a little bit of members content. We're gonna be talking about Tucker Carlson. His new theory is that Pete Buttigieg is pretending to be gay for some reason. So I'm gonna give my thoughts about that. That'll be going up to the members a little bit later on. And otherwise, I'll see you on Monday. Until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. See you soon.